Hi, we're talking today about the bad fear of the Lord and the good fear of the Lord. And this is just some personal experiences dealing with the fear of God. Woo! So, to begin with, I'm going to talk about the bad fear of the Lord that God had to kind of break me of a little bit. And in this process, I was receiving the coals of fire. It was all good. I have a video on that. But in the process, after waking up, I hear God basically thunder from heaven saying, "Judgment has gone out." And I knew it wasn't against me because I was the one that had the coals of fire in my hands at one point. And you can read that in the Bible too. But the thunder part was what really got me. And anytime I would hear thunder, I'd be like, "Ooh, is that God? Is that God?" Kind of like, even though the judgment wasn't against me, I'm still like having that fear of God in a sense. Well, one night, I'm kind of like half asleep, and I just hear God say, "Is like, do you give me permission to thunder?" And half awake, I say yes. And he literally, I just hear thunder after thunder. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. He asked my permission. It's not against me. He's not thundering against me. He wouldn't have asked my permission to thunder if he was against me. And I just remember, like, he was in that whole process while he was asking permission to thunder, was he was trying not to get me to be afraid of his thunder so much, because I've dealt with the thunders of God in some aspects of things. It was so I had an unhealthy fear at that point that he didn't want. Now, the other fear that was actually a good fear, and this was actually a great awakening of who God was at this time. And I actually had someone that knew me and saw this event actually happen. I don't usually talk about this event. So I asked the Lord to literally, like, okay, God, if you want me to do missions, make it rain Friday, Saturday, and Sunday kind of deal. And it started raining Friday. It started raining Saturday. And I'm just looking at the forecast, and I see, like, all this moisture from the plains is evaporating and coming straight into our area. And I'm just like frozen stiff, just looking at that. Like, God, you can make it stop raining now. And that was kind of a great awakening of who God was. And I wasn't willing at that time, but I would pray oftentimes, like, "Lord, I'm not willing, but you're going to have to get me willing." And I remember he started me doing some mission stuff, in the college I was at, and that's a whole story in itself. And it's not like he had me travel overseas to do stuff. He had me do different various things here and there. Needless to say, that fear of the Lord, of just how big he was, it was like seeing the America itself, and from the plains of Ohio, or no, not Ohio, Oklahoma type deal, and just like to Chicago itself. It's just imagining that is God's hand just stretched out over America. And it just basically, that fear of God just opened up just how big God is in my life. And I wouldn't have said it was a great awakening of God in my life at that time until someone actually mentioned, it's like, yeah, I saw that great awakening you had. And like, God revealed to them what I had experienced. And yeah, so that was a fear of the Lord, but at the same time, that fear of the Lord did a quickening within my spirit, and that was a great awakening of just how big God is. So, just to recap, there is the bad fear, whereas fearing his judgment, even though he was judging everybody else, different people here and there, with those thunders and all that, he wasn't judging me at that time. And he wanted me to not be so afraid of thunder every time I would hear the thunder, because I was just afraid of God at that point. It's like he was breaking me of that fear. At the same time, that fear of God, that just seeing how big he was, and that fear of how big he was of a God, it caused a great awakening to happen within me. I didn't even fully realize it back then. And just the awesomeness of who God is in that moment. Because I literally was just stood stiff in the fear of just how big God was. And that was a great awakening. And I can't stress enough that oftentimes people just like, oh, reverence of the Lord. No, I was stiff from just how big God was. Many people talk about the reverence of God as being fear. No, when you stand just stiff at how big God is, it causes something within you to start turning and just to start seeking God. Like, he is just that big. All right. God bless you. Bye for now.